Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm here with a much requested video apparently. Okay, it was not my intent to do this video until potentially the spring next year, but anyway, in a nutshell, the last video I put out was a butterfly gel print one pull that I did. The result was fabulous. I loved it so much so that I've actually framed it and it's now in my dining room. You all loved it as well as I did, so very happy about that, and thank you for all of the compliments and the positive comments on it. However, in that video I did say, just as an offhand comment, I must remember that because you're obviously listening, I did say that I had some seahorse masks somewhere, and I thought maybe I'd try and do a similar thing with seahorses in the future. Well, apparently you don't want to wait till the future, you would like it now. So we're going to give it a go. Now, I found the seahorse masks. They're by PM Artist Studio. I believe they're one of their own designs. So I can't remember how many is here. I think there's about 8 or 9 of them here. And I'm going to give it a go. Now, before we even start, let's manage expectations. This is never going to look like the one I just created. I cannot duplicate my art exactly. However, I'm going to use similar techniques, different colors, and we'll hopefully do something very pleasing at the end of it. Now, my very first decision is, how literal do I want to be? Do I want all the because when I did the butterflies, I did them almost in a spiral, because to me, butterflies can fly in every direction. Seahorses, however, swim up and down, or forward and backwards, whatever they do. They don't swim like this. However, I'm wondering, do I want to be that literal, or do I want to have a seahorse type theme and maybe keep the sweep of them going? So these have never been used, as you can see, because goodness knows they're nice and pristine, so they stick to each other more than the plate. So I'm wondering, right, let's just do what I did last time. Now with these, however, because there's no paint on them, I can do them in either side. I'm wondering whether to do a spiral of them and see what it looks like, because you never know how things are going to end up. I'm already not sure about this. I think I want to do them quite literally. I want them up and down. Right, which is fine, because I can always use this for a book cover or a journal cover, or if it turns out lovely, it might end up as another piece of framed art. Who knows? Right, I'm going to lift these up. Now, all of the masks are made of UPO at PM Artist Studio. It's 100% UPO. It's £70. And I think it's made of polypropylene or something like that. I get a bit confused with all the long words. So what I would say is, just like any stencil you use, respect the stencil. That will go for mylar, metal, paper, thin plastic, whatever you make a stencil from, because it's a thin, and I mean thin in this way, it will tear or pull if you manhandle it or mistreat it. So just be aware of that. It's good to mention it from time to time. Right, is that the same size as that? It is, right. It's maybe not have another one of those. I'm leaning more towards the smaller seahorses. We've actually got sunshine here. I'm trying not to say it too loud, because we've had about 12 days of rain now, so I'm fingers crossed we're going to be okay. Right, I can have these going in the opposite directions. Which is fine with me. I'm not really sure. I don't really have a vision for this, because I can't say it was overly planned. Well, it wasn't planned. I'm doing it because you want it to be done. Right, I've only got one left. I could get him on there, or her, let's not be sexist. Let's just move this one over. I'm going to be very wary because when I'm rolling out paint, I know all these little bits are very likely to lift up if I'm not careful. I want you a little bit further down than that. Right, and then if I put the other big one over there, I can't get my fingernails under these now. I'm trying not to ruin these little frilly edges. So if this one goes up here, if I put you up there, and maybe just move you down. Oh, come on. I did, before the last one, I conditioned my gel plate, which means that it's very, very clean and it's been treated with mineral oil because I'm going to leave the wet strand tissue on here a while, it does need to sit. Right, do I want that way or that way? Sorry guys, having a bit of a moment here. Something feels like it needs to change. I think you need to come over. I've lost the one I've just put down. And you need to come over. Right, we'll get there in the end, guys, I promise you. This is just part of the process, and once it's down and I'm happy with it, then this process goes reasonably quickly. So I want that quite close to those two. And then this little one can be up there. Yeah, right, okay. I think that will do. Compositionally, that doesn't bother me. Right, now I'm going to use my brayer, it's a 4-inch speedball brayer, and gently bray over the top of all of these, just to make sure all of these little pieces are fully embedded, well not embedded, that's the wrong word, fully in contact with the gel plate or gel press below. Now, before we get going, there's going to be one big difference. With the butterflies, there were lots of openings in the mask, which is how I put colour into them. I'm going to have to treat the body slightly different here, so that's going to be another consideration. Yeah, right, I think I'm going to start as I started the other one. I started the other one with white, and I'm going to start this one with white. Now, if you haven't seen the previous one, basically what I'm doing is I'm leaving the masks, and these are masks, down on the gel plate for the whole process, except just before I do the final pull, which I'll then lift them up and get some of the extra detail stamped or marked onto the plate. And from there on in, it's then just building up an image to pull behind them. And actually, I just remembered I've got a fish stamp that I created. Right, I'm going to come in. This is the cleanup one from the butterfly one, so I'm just going to use the same thing here, just to take the beginning paint away. I like putting white on first because it almost gives it like a halo effect. And by halo, I mean around the pieces of the masks, around the edges. Now, I don't mind little bits of build up. I will pick up as I go along, as I did with the last one. Let's just take that off there. So the next colour I'm going to reach for is, it would normally be black, but I think I'm going to use Prussian blue. I think it's Prussian, it might be indigo, I can't remember. There's nothing written on this. So let's just clean that brayer off a bit. So, and then what the darker colour, which is, I'm sure this is indigo looking at this, what the darker colour will do is it will start to outline all of those details. Now, when it comes to the little seahorses, I do know that there's very, very small apertures in those. So the paint will go down, but the paint may not necessarily pull back up out of them. And that's actually a good thing in this instance, because it will help outline the seahorses. Got quite a bit of paint here, Griffiths. I suppose it's not a bad thing. It'll establish the outline. You always need a little bit more paint than you think when you're spraying paint over a stencil or a mask, because you need the paint thick enough to go down in between all the little gaps and crevices in your design, although you don't need so much that you actually force the paint under the edges of the stencil or the mask. Right. I'm just clearing my extra paint up onto book page. I've got some newsprint paper here. I like to use newsprint paper for a lot of things I do on the jar plate because it's really inexpensive. It's called newsprint offcut paper. I know different countries have it in under different names, so it's a bit like if you went to the butcher shop or something and they cut you a piece of meat, it's that sort of paper. Yeah, I find it quite resilient until you get it wet or damp, and then sometimes it will tear. So you've got to be a little bit careful. So I don't tend to leave it down too long. That's very nice, I like that. I was going to use this for multiple pulls, but I like that. I'm going to leave that as it is. Now the sheets that I'm showing you, I'm not going to be showing you them again. So once you've seen them, you've seen them. Now just coming back in with this bit of paper here, just to take some of this out of the gaps. As we work on through this, I'll try and keep these areas as clean as I can, because that's what's going to give me a bit of a playing field for other details that go on there. I'm going to pick that up off there. All paper I create becomes collage papers at the end of the day, so I'm never worried about creating more papers. I like that. Just clean the brayer off a bit more. Right, I'm going to come in with the green, and I'm going to use that olive green again, the light olive green that I like so much. It's a semi-transparent, so, and it's a bit like chewing gum apparently. It's almost a lime green. Not sure, I think if you compared lime green and this side by side, you'd notice a difference, but I'm not 100% certain. I think I need to get some more paper for cleanup. Give me a second. You know, when you think you've prepared everything, and then you turn around and the one thing you haven't prepared was probably one of the most essential pieces to the process. That's me. I've started a video before now and forgotten to pull the paint out. So, right, that's on that. Again, I'm going to come in with some newsprint. I will be doing the final pull, will actually be done on wet strength tissue by Carnival, because I'll be leaving it down. Now I'm going to use this tool here. It's called a Baron. This was made by Anthony Cody at Cody Woodcrafts on Etsy in America. He's a wood artist, and he hand carved these, turned them, and I love it because it saves my wrist a lot of the time. It depends on what project I'm doing as to how often I use it, but I love it all the same. I'm going to try and get down a little bit around the edges, and hopefully I haven't waited too long and the paper tears. And if the paper tears when I lift it up, again, I'm not going to stress. Why? Because it's collage paper. I do tend to pull it. I've got this almost flat to this surface, so as I'm pulling it, it's peeling it back. If I pull it directly up, I'm likely to lift the masks off. If you look here, these slightly grey pieces, this was where the surface of the paper was beginning to come off, because that had paint on it on a brand new mask or a stencil, and it's likely to stick. But you know, again, loving that. I'm going to pull in this bit of painty paper that we're building up here, because goodness knows, I don't know about you, if you do gel plate work, I find some of my cleanup sheets are better than some of the artwork I create. Loving that. So right now, let's have a little bit of a think-see here. So we're obviously trying to work with an underwater theme. So the blue that I put on there and the green is in within character of it, which is good. I can see I've got quite a build up here. I'm hoping to get a really good build up because there's lots of fine detail here, and I really want that captured in this piece. So I think we're coming with a teal. Actually, it's not teal. I'm going to come in with this light turquoise colour. It's this colour here. Any bottles you see like this are basically, what I've done is, if I've had other paint, I will just scrape all the spare paint of the same colour or similar into a bottle like this, and then these just become mixed bottles for me. It's my way of creating space within my paint storage so I can buy more paint, and then it's also a way of giving me the opportunity to discover different colours by mixing different brands and different colours and the ends of tubes and stuff. Sometimes you have some very nice surprises as far as colour goes. Sometimes you end up with mud. But you know what? Sometimes I can work on the gel plate and end up with mud. There's no skill in creating mud. It's a natural thing for most of us to do, I think. So now, I will endeavour to put a link in the description box of the video. And if you're looking for the description box, if you look under the title of the video, there will be the word more, M-O-R-E, and it's in bold print. If you tap on that, it will open the description box. Within that, I will put as much information as I think you might need about the product, about this and the video, and I'll put a link to the butterfly one as well, because if you've enjoyed this one, I'm almost certain you're going to enjoy the butterfly one. I will also put a link to PM Artist Studio, the link to these seahorse masks. Push it, I don't want to leave it down too long because I don't want the paper sticking to it. I really am liking these pulls though. I mean, I can come in and doodle those back in again. Really, really loving that. Okay, this says terracotta, so that's as close to terracotta as I'm going to get. Right, all that needs to be taken off there. Oh, look, I've got an image transfer. The reason I want to use terracotta is this is basically a cool palette in that it's the cool colours on the colour wheel. The blues and the greens. Mind you, if it was like a yellow green, it would probably go into the warm family. But just as a basis, this is pretty much going to be cool colours on here. I'm probably going to add a touch of metallic in here, and I will probably put some like colour shift or shimmer type stuff in here. But because it's an earthy type palette, I want to add a little bit of brown into this as well, just to build up the outline around here. Now, I did have a question on my comments, and I have answered it to the person who actually asked, but it was a valid question, and I think I need to answer it to all of you on screen. And the question was, Ceri, what is the difference between stencils and masks? Well, I have always maintained there isn't a difference between stencil and masks, because in my opinion, stenciling and masking are techniques. And by that I mean that if you put something down, like we've got areas of this gel plate that are covered by the seahorses. So the seahorses are masking or protecting the surface underneath from being painted upon as I'm doing this process. So that is a mask. Now, however, the apertures within the seahorse the paint is going through, and therefore that is a stenciling technique. So it's really hard, and I can understand where the confusion comes about. And believe me, when I first started out, I was hell and determined to find out what the difference was. And at the moment I figured out that actually stencil and mask are techniques. You can use a stencil as a mask. You can use a mask as a stencil. It's all about the technique and how you use it. So please don't get hung up on it. I know companies label things stencils and masks because for search engine optimization and clarity, they try to make it as easy as possible. However, I would say I could use these as a stencil. Look, that did rip. A little bit of paint on there. Again, nice piece. This could be repaired if I was overly bothered about it, but I'm not overly bothered about it. This is wet strength tissue, and I just want to clean up the areas between the seahorses. So hopefully that answered that for everyone. It's a very hard question to give a definitive answer to because, as I said, stenciling and masking to me are techniques. It depends on your application or the art you're creating as to which category they fall into. Right, there you go. I think I've got some stuff on there. Right, now what I'm going to do is, let's clean this off a second. I think my next step is going to be, and we're almost at the end of this stage of it. The whole point of this is to build the outlines around these. So I know that there is a very faint outline around each of these. I know we've added colour. Someone actually did ask, why did you add so much paint if you just wanted to add an outline, or are you just creating papers? Twofold. I am creating interesting papers, as you've seen, but also by adding the outline, it means that when I create the next stage, which is the patterning in the background, it'll be more defined for me. So I think I'm going to go back to my indigo blue, and I've decided it is indigo. And I think I'm going to do this pole. Yeah, let's do this pole with the wet strength tissue, and then I can start thinking about decorating up. Now, as far as decorating this piece to be able to do a one pole, now I'm calling it a one pole. You could pull this print, and then after the print has been pulled, you could come in with markers, you could come in and put stamps into it, you could do a lot of other techniques over the top. And I very often, when I'm creating gel prints, as you've seen, will come back in and add other elements to them. So, but in this instance, I'm going to try for a one pull, although the exception to that is I'm going to have to come in and put eyes into these little ones, and that will probably be done with I don't know what it's going to be done with yet. I might do it with a Posca pen, I might do it with a paintbrush, I might do it with a cotton bud for cleaning your ears. I mean, I might do it with a pencil eraser. I'm not sure what I'll do. Right, so that's a relatively easy even coat. Now put on my wet strength tissue, and my aim is not to pull up all of the detail around the seahorses, but my aim is to try and pull as much up out of this areas. Am I in shot? I am in shot. Out of these areas, which are the joining areas or the plain areas, as I can, purely because that's where I'm going to start decorating in a moment or two. Right. If I need to go back in, I can. Right, I do need to go back in, but I've got a really nice print there. That's lovely. So I'm just going to use, this one's got paint on. It was one of the cleanups from the butterfly print. So I'm just going to come in, come over the top and see whether, I'm not working my fingers down into it. I'm literally trying to clean up the areas around everything, like this area here. And I don't mind that I've got a real big build-up in amongst the seahorses. Right, how do I feel about that? I might just pull a little bit out of some of the edges of some of these. They're a little bit heavier than I anticipated, but I'm desperate to keep the outline of the seahorses, because if I don't keep the outline, it's going to be pointless. We're just going to have pale patches of colour, pale patches without colour. Just a little bit around here. So I do hope this is all making sense to everyone. Right, and I like the way I've got to build up a paint inside all of these defining pieces of the seahorse, because when I lift up these masks, that's going to leave an area that's going to show the definition. And then when I paint the seahorses, which I'll do my sponging technique, it'll just be a hint of a colour on each of them. It'll mean that that won't get too broken up. I think maybe I do. Right, I created this cardboard mark making tool ages ago, to be honest with you. And it's in a video. I'll try and link this video where I made lots of mark making tools. And I need to put fish in, and the thing is, if I stamp over the backs of these before these are pulled up, the fish will look as if they're swimming behind. I don't need too many fish, but I do need some fish. This was just made out of cardboard, by the way. It could almost have been cereal packaging. So I'm just going to tap it down, getting a layer of paint on there, and give it a little bit of a press. And as you can see, it'll put fish in. Now, because I didn't put eyeballs in this, it does mean I can have it going in both directions. A couple down there. Oh, just one down there apparently. Let's add a few more up there. Right, and I don't clean this off because the more paint that builds up on it, the thicker the line becomes. So I think that's probably dry enough now. Just let it air dry. I mean, I can still see a bit of a shine, but it's dry enough for me to use. Right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this. This is a bit of just corrugated cardboard and some gold, because what I want to do is want to put, you know, when you're in the ocean, sometimes you may have seen the documentary where the light comes through from the surface, and I think if I put some gold in as stripes on an angle, yeah, you heard it here, Ceri's doing diagonals again, which is a heck of a shock to me as well as everyone else. But I think if I put in some diagonals that'll look like the sun or daylight coming down from the surface. Just a little bit of something in the background. Right, so I've got sunlight coming in. I need bubbles. So what's this one called? See, Darcy, I wrote them down. This is Mark Makers and it's called Planets. Why do I think this was Silly Spheres? Maybe it is Planets. I could have sworn I've written the wrong words on there. Is that terrible? I've made the point to do. I have to double check that one. I'm certain I've written the wrong thing on it. So I'm just going to use this Lucas Krill. It's called Phthalo. I don't need a lot of it. I just want the hint of bubbles because we're under the ocean. So there you go. I'll come in, give it a press. Now, when I'm using this, I tend to do it a quarter turn every time I reuse it, and that way it changes the orientation of the bubbles or of the circles. Like there. Ooh, we're going to have to make a decision on what colour our seahorses are, aren't we? A little bit down there. Right, I need to go and put this in water, but what I'll do is I'll just, sorry for leaning over, I'm just going to stamp off on this bit of spare paper. That way I'm building up collage stuff for the future. So I think what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to pause you. And this is going to be a couple of pauses from here on in. There you go, that's what that looks like. Because I'm going to have to clean things up. Because if you've got a foam stamp, you need to immediately put it in water or wash this off. Otherwise, it seals the surface and you don't want that. Back in 2. There you go, that's almost dry. I can see just a sheen on it, but for what I'm going to do, it'll be all right. So this is another one. This is Bubble Wrap Style 3, and it's a mini bubble wrap foam stamp I created. And I want this in because I don't want this to go too dark. I want to keep this relatively light. So let's put some white into this. And I think we'll almost be ready then to lift off the seahorses and add some colour to this. Right. Giving it a reasonable press down because remember, I'm going over the back of everything you're seeing here. So these will be behind my seahorses. And my fish and everything else that have been on there first. Now I'm wondering whether I should... I don't have very many things that are nautical. I'm wondering whether I need to put something green into this. And the reason I'm thinking of that is because there would be kelp or seaweed or anything like that on this. I'm just stamping this off, guys, just to create another collage page, because you can never have enough collage pages, can you? There you go, there's another one. So this is going to have to go into the water, so give me 2 seconds, I'll be back. And I'm back, and I think I know what I want to do down here now. I've got these foam stamps, and I believe they're from Joan Miron. Sorry, Joan, I always murder your last name, as everyone else's. This is called Oak Tree, and this one is called Flying Dove. They're just stylized symbols. But what I thought is if I use these as a mixture along the bottom, they will give the illusion of maybe some seaweed or some activity at the bottom. This is Sap Green by Lucas Krill, and I'm just going to stamp them in. Not trying to get them perfect. I don't want perfect. But what I do want is I just want elements down here to almost hint at the fact that there's a sea floor somewhere. They may or may not be visible in the final piece. Which way up do I want this? Actually, I do like it that way. And actually, if you go to the PM Artist website and look for, if you go to foam stamps and you look under Joan in, I think it's called Designs by Artist is the category, then you'll see Joan in there. Just click on Joan and then this will come up as part of her design stable. So the moment of truth, I'm now going to take these up. Now you saw when I was first setting this up how tricky these are to lift up. So I'm going to use the edge of my fingernail just to catch an area and gently peel them up. Now remember, they're going to be even stickier than they were before because you've now got paint surrounding them. So don't be tempted to use a blade or a knife or a palette knife. Literally do this really gently. Give yourself time to lift it up. Now, I don't tend to wash my stencils and masks. However, over time, you'll find these areas will fill up. And if you do have that happen, you can clean your stencils by soaking them. And I tend to soak them in this, which is Murphy's Oil Wood Cleaner. I usually use probably about an inch in the bottom of a washing up dish with a few capfuls of this, and leave it soak, and after a couple of days it'll probably start, you'll just gently be able to rub it with your fingers, it'll clean off. What I would say, however, is there's an aroma to that Murphy's oil, so I'm quite sensitive to aromas, so just make sure you've got in a well ventilated area if you're that sort of person. I am, however, loving these, and I think I may just stick these down onto an art journal page at some point because I love the way these look. Right, let's see if I can take the rest of these up. I hope you're all holding your breath because I kind of am. I am liking the way it's left some of the detail in there, which is exactly what I wanted. Because of the nature of these, they're not like the butterfly ones. I do not have a lot of apertures within the piece to actually designate that they're a butterfly. So these are going to be more like a ghost. I'm loving how these look. I very much think I'm just going to, I might even put them on the cover of an art journal. What was I saying? So yeah, you might find that the final image is going to look quite ethereal. Is that the word I'm looking for? Something that's quite ghost-like, because they will be there, but they'll not be solid. I'll try and do the best I can with enhancing them with colour, though. I can hardly see the end of the little one. Up you come. That's so sweet. That's so sweet. And I think I'm going to pull the whole print. I said I was going to use Arctic. I think I'm going to use a colour called Mint, which is this colour, because I think that will just give a nice background to the whole print. And not only that, the other colours will not be contaminated by the intensity of that colour. I'm really loving these. Last one. And I've successfully not broken any. I do love these. Gorgeous. Okay, so the colours I've chosen for my seahorses are magenta, an orange, a yellow, although the yellow in here is a lot darker than the colour on the outside of the bottle because I mixed in another colour with it. And I'm going to come in with a purple as well. I'm going to be applying them with a sponge. And I'm going to have to cut this sponge out. This is just packing sponge. I tend to cut it into strips. And I'm going to cut quite thin strips because if you look at the areas I've got to paint in, I'm going to need to start working really small. The other thing I'm going to have to remember is eventually I'm going to have to put an eye on here. So an eye is going to be, I'm going to have to do that off screen because I'm going to have to get directly over it. And if I do that on screen, you're just going to be seeing the back of my head. Not the most attractive of things. Right, so a little bit of the paint out on my palette. I'm going to fold this in half because I found for me personally that works easier. Now I'm going to keep this lightest colour to the lightest of the seahorses. Sorry, the smallest of the seahorses. Just because I feel that. Now if I go slightly, well I will be going over the edges of the seahorse, but that doesn't bother me for the simple fact that it'll give the seahorses almost a glow. Right, now I want another yellow one. I think I've got enough for 2 of each. I think it's going to have to be this one. I might have to get some more yellow out. I like doing sponging techniques on the plate because it doesn't damage the plate. It also gives the paint a very, very transparent colour. I'm going to need more of this, in that the layer is so thin. Is that something stuck on my plate? Yes, it was. The layer is so thin, the paint, that you'll be able to see through it, which is again why I'm thinking of using the mint color in the background. Because if I put too dominant of a color over to pull this with, what's going to happen is everything on here is just going to change color to the color of the background. Right, a little bit more on his little nose. Right, I think I won't need to clean the plate if I put orange next. So I'm just going to pull in some orange. I'm trying to keep like the colours not as far from each other as I can, but at a relative distance, let's put it that way. Did you hear me thinking then? Scary, isn't it? Ceri can think. Now, you could have done something different to these seahorses as well, although it would have been slightly tricky in that you could have come in with maybe a stencil that had almost a fish scale effect to it. And you could have done that, or maybe a foam stamp with that sort of effect to it. You could, excuse me, you could come in and actually use Posca pens to draw the details in before you pick the stuff up and the whole print up, because Posca pens will dry on the plate and they will pick up with other paint. I don't do it very often, but it can be done. I've seen it done umpteen times. So you could come in and put the detail in and go to town with these. You can actually come in with a paintbrush and actually paint in the seahorses if you wish. I have done that sort of technique before. Now I am assuming that because these are orange, when I put the mint green over, they're going to sort of turn almost like a brownish colour, which actually doesn't matter because it's a natural colour for the scene we're in. So I think we're going to go on to the pink now. This is just magenta. And I think I'm going to do this big mama over here. If you do this, don't get hung up with trying to keep within the lines, guys. It's not going to work for you. All you'll do is get yourself really frustrated. You have to let go of perfectionism when you do this sort of thing. You literally have to let the gel plate and the process do what it wants to do. I mean, I obviously don't just splash everywhere. I'm trying to be a little more controlling of where I put the paint. However, you just understand, guys, this is just a process you have to trust. And we've heard that one from me so many times. For once, I think I put the right amount of paint out. I'm so tempted to turn this over and see what it looks like, but I'm not going to, because it'll spoil the reveal for both you and I. Right. And then just one more colour, which is the purple one. And if I remember, this purple is a semi-transparent as well, so I know that, oh no, it actually says it's an opaque. I could swear I didn't notice it was an opaque when I used it last. Ah, I can see through that. Now I have no plans for this this piece. If it turns out as good as the butterfly one, this one may also get framed, and if it gets framed, it might go into my bathroom. I think it'll look rather nice in there. I don't think I've got art. No, there's no art in. Oh, actually, there is a piece of art in the bathroom. Yeah, quite a few have asked when you see my studio tours, like, Ceri, why don't you have art on the walls of your studio? Pretty much it's all over the house instead, which is lovely. It's nice that I look around and my creativity looks back at me. Right, I think that's about it. And I'm back and I'm ready to put the pull layer on here now. Now I did say I wanted this color on here, but then I keep being drawn to this color and I quite like them together, but I'm unsure. I mean, I think that I'm trying to be too representational of Under the Sea, when actually, obviously with these colors on here, it's going to be a bit of a fantasy scene anyway. And I think I'm going to put some green on here, but I might pull it with the pink. And part of my thinking is this seems quite a flat color, where this is quite a lively color. And I think if the overall pull color is this, it will enhance everything else on there. It may turn the yellow a bit peachy, but I'm okay with that. So I'm just going to brayer this out, and I'm going to do little patches here and there of green. I think what we'll find is that the color we put over it, which is the pink, will actually sort this out. So, and these lines are actually behind this seahorse, so that's fine. Right, now this isn't dry enough for me to do what I want to do just yet, so maybe if I just blot that off. I'm trying not to stop the video again, because goodness knows we've stopped the video enough times, guys. I think that's okay. Right, so my aim is to get everything ready. Now we know I'm going to pull it with wet strand tissue, which is this. I don't mind whether I use the slightly shiny side or the slightly matte side. It's never bothered me. I just use whichever side gets turned up first. My aim is to put enough paint on here to encapsulate the paint that's already on here, but not so much paint that it's a thick layer. Hope that all makes sense. I'm going to put quite a bit of paint out, because if I run out, if I have too much, I can always put it back into these bottles, which is what I quite like. Now, I'm kind of just letting the roller or the brayer sit on the surface. I'm not hammering this down into the print itself. I'm just literally letting it skim the surface. And that's just to put a barrier over what's on here without starting to pick it up. I also have to be aware that I don't want to take too long to do this, because if the paint dries, I'm never going to be able to pick up the image below it unless I do another pull layer. And the more layers of pull you put on here, the more you're likely to fail. Right, let's get this puppy down. So I'm just going to put this down now. I always try to do it without wrinkles, but you know what? Wrinkles are part and part of this. So just going to come in, put it down. Right, I know it's in contact because I can see it's defined by the outline of this. This can go back into this bottle, which I'm very happy about. Yeah, excuse the messy fingers. I'm an artist, didn't you know? There's more paint on me, my glasses, my face, my shoes, my trousers than anything else in the room, to be honest with you. Let's just lay that across there, right. Just try to focus on your edges more than anything, first of all, because the edges are the bits that will dry out quickest. I'm actually going to use my baron as well, just to come across the top. Now, where you see these creases are likely to leave a little bit of paint behind on the plate, which will just look like it's texturing. If you're new to gel printing, do not think, oh, lift it up and lay it back down again. The moment you pull this up, you'll pull the paint up from underneath it, and it will never look right again. So I'm going to now leave this for about an hour. That's what I left the last one on for. And there's a way of telling whether it's dry is if you put your hand on here, if it feels cool, it usually means it's wet or still damp. If it feels relatively dry, you're usually okay. You can also do a tester by lifting a slight corner. So here we are. It doesn't feel cool anymore. It's been, what's the time? 55 minutes since I did this. So we're going to take it, should easily be dry. It's only a thin layer of paint anyway. Some people would leave it overnight and that wouldn't hurt it. However, I've had quite a lot of success taking it off after about an hour. So as with anything on the gel plate, the magic happens now. It's unpredictable. Let's take that out of the way. We'll need it in a minute. Now, as I said, I'm going to take this off the gel plate. Then I'm going to pause the video and then I'm going to come in and put the eyes into each of the seahorses. And I'm going to use a black Posca pen. This will be the 0.7 millimeter. And once the black is in, I'm just going to put a little highlight with a white Posca pen, just so that I've got it finished. And then I'll bring you back and we'll take a close look at it. Sorry, I can't do it with you there, guys, because I really do need to get like this close to it to make sure I've got it. Some of those seahorses are already this big, for goodness sake. Right, so as with everything, I run my thumb along the edges just to make sure if I have a build-up of paint around the edges of my plate, that I've cracked those edges so that they're not the place where my paper would tear or my image would start to come apart. I mean, I keep a clean plate, so it's very rare I have any residue on the edges of my plate. I also like to work my way all the way around and release all of my edges as the very first thing I do. I think we all form habits, and this one has stood me in good stead over the years, so it's just what I continue to do. Right, so all of the edges are up, so I can now very gently peel it back. And what I do is I don't continually pull in one area. I do swap my hand back and forth, because even though this is wet strength tissue, which is stronger than regular gift wrap tissue, you will find that if you keep pulling in the same area, it's going to break the paper. Okay, it's a very bright looking piece. Lovely clean plate. So there you go. So we've got our seahorses on there. That's not bad. It's a bit brighter than I thought it was going to be honest with you. I didn't think the seahorses were going to show up that brilliantly, but happy that they did. Right, so the job for me now is I need to go in, I need to put the eye in here. Yeah, there'll be one eye on each of these seahorses. And then, as I said, I'll do the eye in black and I'll put a little white dot, and I'll come back and I may even trim it down before I come back. So I'll come back and we'll take a close look. So back in 2, guys. And here you go, all finished. The eyes are in and they've got the little highlights in. And remember, guys, at the beginning of this video, I did say I could not replicate my own art. The last one looked the way it did because of the delicate nature of the butterflies. This has a naive playfulness about it because the masks are actually a lot more solid. They're not lace-like. It gives it slightly a heavy look. but there is something you could easily do here. This is a great place if you would want to come in with pens and actually to doodle in all of the detail. I'm not going to, because I quite like it as it is. However, you could. So just a little bit of a closer view so you can see how I've managed to keep the outline. I think using this colour was probably a mistake because it was so dark. I should have gone with something maybe green. I do like the way the sponging has almost given like a scale-like effect, and I definitely like the greenery along the bottom. If I was to redo this, which I'm not going to, but if I was to do this, I don't think I would have picked it up with the pink. I liked the pink, but I think the pink was the wrong colour. In fact, I probably would have picked it up with maybe cream or that buttermilk colour again, just to lighten everything up again. But I do like this. This is cute. I don't know what's going to happen to this, but I do like it. So anyway, just for those of you who are asking, yes, you can do the technique with other masks. I would always say, though, the more delicate the mask, the more delicate the final result. These are definitely seahorses. I can see they're seahorses. We've got elements of an undersea theme. So just have fun with it, guys. It's at the end of the day, creativity is play. And for me, play and creativity equal mindful, a good place to be honest with you. So hopefully you did enjoy that. I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's Ceri the Crafter. Until next time, goodbye now.